All right, Nas, thanks for joining us, man. How's it going?
Doing great. Just going with the flow of crypto, which is very very fast, especially in this whole like USDH mania.
Yeah, man. Having worked with you directly, I know that the work muscle that you've been building for a long time has prepared you for weeks like this. And I'm just really excited to dive into just get some updates on Bastion and how you guys are approaching everything that's going on with USDH. Um, I wanted to start the conversation helping people understand. Really, when I think about Bastion, I think of Bastion as one of the most secretly incredible companies in the space right now when it comes to issuance. So, give us the introduction on Bastion, and I'll lean us into the recent like New York Trust Charter and everything that means. But maybe we start with high level intro.
That sounds great. So Bastion is a regulated stablecoin issuance platform, really focused on institutional and enterprise use cases, and I think that that's what makes us even more powerful for very large ecosystems such as Hyperliquid. We operate under a New York Trust Charter. We have many MTLs. Kind of everything is already Genius proof and Genius compliance with kind of like the upcoming requirements. And we're really non-extractive by design. We are neutral. We don't have our own stablecoin. We don't have our own blockchain. We really focus on building the financial tools that help you launch and grow a stablecoin ecosystem. That's what we do. We provide operations, technology, regulatory compliance, and we let our partners and kind of like the communities keep the economics. That's really the focus. So we like not competing is really important in terms of kind of like the team of who we are. My background is really in highly regulated financial services, especially on the crypto side and all things key management and security. Was one of the first few employees at Anchorage, major crypto custodian. Was co-created the custody infrastructure at Meta and a lot of the underlying foundation blocks that underpin the issuance of the Libra currency at Meta, and then was CISO at Andreessen Horowitz. The majority of the team essentially comes from the best institutions in the space and regulators, and this is something that we kind of like pride ourselves in being a lean but extremely talent dense team. I think that we've kind of assembled the Avengers of regulated financial services in the blockchain space at this point.
What was give me the story of when this hit your radar? Like when did you get this news that your weekend and this week was going to be completely uprooted and focused on this? What when did this hit your radar?
Yeah, I think Friday was pretty clear, essentially that it was just a lot of interest. Just to be transparent, we have actually already had reached out over the last couple of months to the core Hyperliquid team on seeing if there was an opportunity for us to be an issuer for a native stablecoin to the ecosystem. Didn't get answers. I think that kind of like the neutrality that the core team has been maintaining is we don't do that ourselves, and we kind of like understood that as this is not in the plans. But I think that there definitely seemed to be some interest around that, at least kind of like starting with the ticker and then kind of like over time supporting more of a native stablecoin. I don't think that anyone realized kind of like the scale that like this race would take. And so I'm very happy about it. I think that like this is great to have an open process. That's probably one of the first times that an open process is more efficient than a closed one. So hopefully just more things become as interesting in the space. And I believe that it also helps with education. It was unfortunately a tight timeline to explain the differences, kind of like the requirements from a regulatory perspective. People are not very familiar with specific issuance regulations in the crypto space and in the trading community. And I think that like there is kind of like instinct and intuition, but something that we've spent quite a bit of time was not just getting the proposal out, but I've put forward kind of like a list of questions to ask to issuers as well. So that people understand like what are the questions that you should be asking about an issuer, regardless of Bastion, like whether we win or we don't, is not as important as Hyperliquid really having the best stablecoin and the best issuer as a long-term partner for that.
I saw you come out with that recently. It'd be fun to go just deeper into that and maybe at another time, just get some time to just go one by one there. And just the next 15 minutes as it relates to this. So you mentioned like you saw this opportunity months ago. This wasn't something that hit your radar on Friday. This was something that you and the team saw as like, wow, this seems really, really exciting. What was it about the Hyperliquid community specifically that for those who are just getting familiar with why this buzz is existing today, months ago, what was that for you?
Yeah, I think that if you're in an ecosystem that has just a very good vertical integration, that's really what you're looking for, right? Like if you look at what a Stripe and Bridge is doing, for example, with trying to have kind of like this vertical integration from the user interface for payments all the way down to the payment services provider, the stablecoin infrastructure, issuing your own stablecoin, owning the settlement layer with Tempo, kind of like want to have this vertical integration. And I think that Hyperliquid is really um, the one ecosystem that already has that in place, that can have essentially this kind of vertical integration that is really ruthlessly um, user centric. And that's something that we typically don't see in the space, unless you can kind of like name one. But I haven't seen essentially many. I haven't seen, yeah, just many really ecosystem that have essentially this ruthless focus on a user first experience and no compromise around it. And
Yeah.
doing so while kind of like progressively decentralizing is a extremely hard problem to solve, and then done so. And I think that doing that is really kind of like the success for stablecoins, right? Because stablecoins need to be used for payments, they need to be used for trading, they need to be used for a whole range of solutions. And being user centric is the first part of the system. And they've been winning, and they've been winning. And I don't think that they capture the economics that they should be capturing. And I think that the one winner out of this entire race is not going to be necessarily the issuer. That's going to be the ecosystem as a whole, because they're going to get great economics. They're going to get a great support, great partnerships, and empowerment to really just get the economics that they deserve so that they can reinject that into better products, better settlement layer, better infrastructure, better protocols and products built on top of Hyperliquid and Hyper-EDM. So I think that like those are really just critical things that we noticed very early and took steps already over the past few months to try to enable further.
What's been the relationship, you know, now or in the past with that community, and how are you, a message that you would want to send to them or specifically communicate to them as they think through making this decision? What would be the thing that you would really, really hope that they understood about you personally or Bastion as a business as you guys are, really trying to vie for this spot here?
Yeah, I think that I think that you need three things. I think that you need to be neutral, and you need not to be competing with in the short, mid, or long term with the ecosystem. I think that it really aligns incentive. You have to be aligned in the long run, where the health of your business needs to be aligned with the health of and the growth of Hyperliquid, right? That's kind of like incentives define outcomes. That's the reality. And so you cannot have kind of misaligned incentives. So neutrality, I think, is absolutely critical. The second thing is regulatory compliance. Obviously, you cannot take the risk of USDH being issued and then at some point having to stop all forms of minting and stopping all operations, which would essentially kind of like kill the majority of stable coins if they can't be supported pretty broadly, especially in the US. And so I think that regulatory compliance on day one and de-risking that is absolutely critical, which is why we have the New York Trust Charter that enables that today, and have recommended, regardless of the outcome, of selecting a partner that has a New York Trust Charter that is already Genius compliant today and not in the future as like a hypothetic. And then finally, I think that having alignment with the system, having used the platform, just understanding those systems, I think that the Hyperliquid community probably doesn't realize how many people on the institutional side actually use Hyperliquid stealthy behind the scenes. I was actually talking to several friends who are top traders at Fidelity and other institutions, and they're all kind of leveraging Hyperliquid behind the scenes, kind of like when they go back home, they just have fun trading essentially on the platform more than any other platform. And so that's something that I think because the UX is the one of a central exchange and kind of like their ability essentially to leverage the decentralization for without having like as much burden from kind of like reporting on central exchanges, etc. It's actually quite a lot. So I think that I have been also like leveraging the platform myself, and I think that like this is kind of the user first approach that really just drove us to already start the outreach and seeing how we could help um, already over the past few months and not waiting for this proposal.
Can you compare and contrast a little bit, mostly just to help ground the reality of what a New York trust charter means and what you've said, day one genius compliance using this trust charter, what that means for Bastion if compared to these other parties, and maybe what considerations need to be taken into account that a New York trust charter brings compared to these other models. I think that's such a key thing here for you guys.
Yeah, I think that there is a kind of
There's a lot of misunderstanding around this, I think, specifically.
yeah, it's really like very few people kind of like understand. I think that there's kind of like the word genius compliant that has been thrown around, but by literally every single one of the participants. And the reality is that there are only two that have kind of like the compliance capabilities today, which is Bastion and Paxos. The reality is that genius. Uh, Readiness versus genius compliance versus other things are like really not well encoded today outside of it's pretty clear that for genius compliance you need to have either a federal or a state charter, whether that's a bank charter or a trust charter, and money transmission and money transmitter licenses are not sufficient, which means that if you only have MTLs, you are not ready for genius compliance today. That is just a hard fact in the act. And so it's really important to make sure that at the bare minimum there is a federal or a state charter, bank or trust that is actually owned by the issuer today to be already genius compliant. And then within that, you have kind of like a lot of different levels, right? First, set money transmitter licensing aside, that is just not relevant. As I was mentioning, Bitcoin ATM operators have an MTL. You have like a bunch of companies all around the US and the world that have MTLs to move money from point A to point B. That does not apply to issuance. That's just a completely separate activity. And so once you have kind of like a charter, you might have it from different states that have different level of robustness to in terms of supervision, right? Like you want to make sure that you really aim for the highest standard because the Genius Act actually enforces the highest level of supervision at the federal level, and then requires equivalence from the states to have to with kind of like the federal framework to be Genius compliant. So you have to be registered with a state today that has an equivalent framework to the one in the Genius Act. And the reality is that New York is likely the one that has like an equivalence in kind of like this passporting with the Genius Act. This is what PayPal and Ripple and others have selected as a home for their stablecoin, which I think was the right thing to manage trust. And a New York trust charter essentially means that you're regulated under New York banking law, under the most rigorous frameworks outlined by the NYDFS, which is the regulator that supervises the majority of the large New York-based banks, and has been really overseeing stablecoin issuance for longer than any other regulator, right? Which means that their frameworks have been battle tested over many years, including by some of the issuers that participate in the race today, and major props to them for kind of like leading the way there. But if you look at other regulators, there hasn't been kind of like any major stablecoin supervised, launched under another jurisdiction and supervised under that other jurisdiction without clear kind of security failures or like financial failures. And so this is why you need to kind of like maintain this highest bar, and New York is so important. New York has the equivalent already today with the Genius Act and is Genius compliant and puts you essentially under the supervision of the NYDFS with the New York banking law. So the bar is as high as it gets, which protects people, that protects the holders. That's a very good thing for anyone kind of transacting with the stablecoin.
What is the opportunity cost here if a selection is made that doesn't have that level, in your opinion, of due diligence or compliance or like regulatory coverage under it or scrutiny? Like, what is the trade-off or what is the potential risk that is at stake if that is the decision that's made with maybe like you and Paxos have this specific qualification? What's at risk if another one is chosen in
Yeah,
this way?
I mean, you're essentially performing a highly regulated activity without no one seeing whether you're doing the right thing or not, right? And we all know that it's typically a recipe for failure because if you don't have, again, incentives define the outcome, and if you have no one essentially ensuring that you have the incentives to operate within a given set of rules, then what prevents you from stepping off the boundary, right? To invest something into something else than the Genius Act, to actually not have the funds in a segregated bankruptcy remote accounts separate from your own corporate funds, for example. We've seen those things happen with exchanges that were not regulated. And we see companies like Coinbase, for example, doing extremely well over time because they're actually choosing this compliance first path and always being supervised as such. And all the exchanges that were not following those rules have typically ran into a lot of issues, whether that's financial issues, anti-money laundering issues, fraud issues, North Korea being involved in more and more activity on those central platforms. And so I think that it's really important for us to think that that's essentially an activity that needs to be looked at by someone. And someone needs to be auditing this, and someone needs to be ensuring that rules are followed. And this is what a regulator does. And if you don't have a regulator looking at your stablecoin today, that creates a tremendous amount of risks. And any issue with the USDH could potentially kill it, right? Like we've seen Circle depeg because like the level of financial health from the institutions that they worked with at the time was not up to par with where they should be. And so those things are extremely important to have in place. And regulators are ensuring that people are kept safe, that there's no depegging, that the stablecoins are always available, that the minting always continues, that there is no hack. All of these things kind of like compound over time to build trust as well.
Yeah. As we close here, this always flies by, doesn't it? I think this week has been an interesting exercise in really accelerating what is needed in the industry and who's in a position to deliver it. How do you think about the future, USDH aside, in terms of like this type of business model or this type of business need, this full stack, this fully integrated stablecoin system end to end? This is a really interesting showcase for you guys, I think, and what you guys can bring to the market. Do you see, just bring us into the future outlook a little bit of like how you see things like Hyperliquid and more of them in the future for your business? I'm imagining this is one of potentially many really interesting go to markets that you guys could have.
Yeah, definitely. So the way we think about Bastion is that we want to provide the underlying infrastructure that follows the stablecoin journey, right? Like the issuance is really a business that is an index on interest rates, right? And I don't think that like that's the best thing to build in isolation. You want to make sure that you follow the stablecoin journey, starting with issuance. You move the global money supply on chain. Then you need a place to hold them. So we have kind of like the custody capabilities at a kind of like institutional grade custody capabilities, send, receive, hold. And then we have all the orchestration that comes with it, right? To make it as spendable as possible, moving the money, making it spendable for different payments use cases. And so, and in and outside of the US in 50 jurisdiction. And so this is where making sure that you have the ability to not just issue the stablecoin, but stablecoins need to be used. That's what makes them valuable, right? Like that's what makes them more valuable than the fiat equivalent. Otherwise, I would keep things in hard physical cash. And so the
And
way
you
we
guys started there, right? Like you didn't just start with issuance. Like you've been building a lot of the all of these other things before this in many
exactly.
ways too.
Yeah, we started with the custody piece and then the orchestration piece and then issuance piece. Once we got our trust charter, we didn't want to, again, kind of like do something that is not properly regulated. And so now we have kind of like this ability to support the entire stablecoin journey. And the way we think about it is that you need to have those tools to make sure that the stablecoins are as useful as possible. Integration with different emerging markets, integration with different exchanges, integration with different other stablecoins, other fiat currencies. This is absolutely critical. Cards, all of those things are absolutely critical to enable the spendability and build kind of products that, again, build more value for the users. This user first approach is absolutely critical. And then the business model, as interest rates go down, people use more of the stablecoin and pay with it and transact for different financial services. So you actually make up on the other side. It's really important to have also as a business to be healthy, not just an index on the yield that is shared, but also kind of the long-term utility built for the stablecoin and being a gateway to more utility over time. And so I think that this is also something that we're seeing out of some of the proposals, not all of them. And that's something that I'm very happy about because ultimately there needs to be more utility built for stablecoins, for network effects around stablecoin as a whole to get created, right? Every time that the new stablecoin is created, it builds value for all of the existing ones because it builds more distribution, more people integrate with kind of crypto wallets and blockchain infrastructure, and that then is interoperable with all the other stablecoins right away, right? Paxos just released their ability to their announcement with PayPal to include USDH as part of the usage on the platform. That's very valuable, but that's only possible because they build the infrastructure to support PYUSD in the first place. And so
Yep.
this kind of like interoperability, every time that the new stablecoin is created and then distributed, it builds value for all the other stablecoins. And so that's something that I'm extremely excited about, regardless of who issues for USDH. I'm very, very bullish on USDH and Hyperliquid from that standpoint.
Awesome, Nas. I'll show you this before we close. We are tracking this on our side on Stable Dash. We would love your eyes on this, especially if you have any edits or tweaks or things that we need to change. We're going in here and tracking everyone that we can find in the system and putting this into a single like HQ, if you will.
That's awesome.
So I'll share this with you. And just thanks for the time and thanks for what you're building. It's exciting to follow the journey.
Thank you so much, Drew. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure.